All right, so for the motor side, I've kind of been pondering it. What I think I'm gonna do, this is the stock fuel rail right here. I already got all the clips pulled off and that little plastic piece that rests in these two little bungs. I've got that completely taken apart. There's just a bunch of little clips you gotta pry apart with a flathead screwdriver and it all pops off. And the reason for that is because I'm gonna lay this underneath this fuel rail to kind of tuck it. So I think this is where I'm gonna be mounting my fuel pressure regulator. And don't mind all this dust, it needs to get a good washing. So this bottom case right here on the fuse box, same thing, there's these little tabs you can pry it apart. And I just mounted the, come on focus. I mounted the bracket with 2 screws. And the reason I did that is, sorry I got the hiccups. As you guys can see, my bay is kind of cluttered towards the back here, except for this little area, but there really isn't a good mounting spot anywhere here for that FPR. So I think right there is where we're gonna go. So, oh, crap. This section of hose right here, that's going into the stock fuel rail, comes back, now, I don't know if you guys can see that, right there. No, not right there. Where is it? Yep. There is that blue little clip deal. That's how long this little section is. So that's actually going to be my feed. So I've got this somewhere. I've got this fitting right here. It's a 5/16 fuel fitting. Not quite sure exactly what it's called, but that's going to go into my hose. It's going to get plugged into there, and I'm going to route it back around the firewall. It's going to plug into my fuel filter, which I'm going to tuck back there, and then off the fuel filter I'm going to do a 90 with another short section of hose that's going to route to this side of the fuel rail. As you can see, I already got that fitting on, and I got the bottom plugged. I was going to do with the bottom feed, but with the stock manifold, I don't believe I'm going to have enough clearance to run a 90 off of that. So from there, from this end, we're going to go back into the fuel pressure regulator, and then from there we're going to run a whole new line all the way back to the tank for the return. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that rail on and start getting my hoses cut and the fuel filter and all that assembled and put in. So here's that piece of hose, that fuel line I was talking about, and here's what I got made so far. So here's the fuel filter, obviously arrow going towards the rail, and I've got a straight fitting 2 hose and a 45 going to that 5/16 fuel fitting, and then a 90. So I'm going to go ahead and put that, well actually I'm going to get another hose attached to here, and I'm just going to leave it long. Go ahead and stick that in there, get my fuel rail put on, and then I'm going to just basically measure that line out and cut it where I need it once this is already in place. I don't have any brackets for this right now. I might just zip tie it to something in the meantime, but I'm gonna have to grab me some C-clamps with some rubber and get that mounted to the firewall. So I told you guys that the fitting on the firewall was a 5/16 quick connect. It actually is 1 1/4 inch, or not 1 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. I don't know why that's the case, but I know that one on the fuel rail is a 5/16, and I tried putting this on into the back over there, and it is definitely a little loose on there. So gonna go ahead and order the right one, and in the meantime just continue doing the rest of the stuff. So here's the correct fitting, 6AN to 1/4 inch hardline fitting, and I already got that installed. Right back there, if you can see that purple fitting. So from that fitting, obviously, you guys already know we got the fuel filter sitting there. And then we got a short piece of hose from the back side of that fuel filter coming right into this side of the rail. And I've got everything already installed, as you can see. Set the slider here. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to do a better job tucking this. This little vacuum deal right here that's bolted down on the left-hand side of the rail. It had to get removed, so I just unbolted it for now and it's off to the side. I'll have to figure out what exactly to do with it. And then from there, so we got the feed coming in, going through the filter. And it's pretty easy to access the filter right there. I left a little bit of slack to where I can just unbolt this. Obviously it'll leak a little bit of fuel out, and pull it out, or vice versa. But there's enough room to pull it out and get it all cleaned out if I need to. Well, when I will need to. So I did run out of the black hose, so I did have to use a piece of the silver, which is on the exit side of the fuel rail. As you can see, I got a 90 on it, coming down and going into the side of the fuel pressure regulator right there. And last thing I got to do is I've got a 90 sitting right here. I've got a 90 sitting right there, right on the bottom of the fuel pressure regulator, and I already got my hose. It's actually right there. I already got my hose ran through. I just gotta cut it and get the fitting right here. Everything is still kind of loose. This fuse box isn't mounted, but that's the last thing I got to do, is get that installed onto that 90, and that is going to be a complete job. I'll show you the sending unit. So it worked out perfect having that bulkhead fitting pointed the same way the existing one was, or I guess the original one was. Worked out great. One more thing, remember that this sending unit, it actually collapses a little bit when you put it into the tank, so make sure you cut your hose accordingly, so that way when you press down on it, you've got room for your sending unit to compress. As for the return line, basically all I did was I followed the fuel lines, and it's pretty simple, self-explanatory, I guess. They all follow the driver's side, I guess. In this case, it would be the left-hand side. And I just zip tied about every 12 inches, and I had to remove one panel. I had to remove this panel right here. It'll focus. And then shove that up through over the fuel tank, and it fit in there just fine. And obviously you can see I got it zip tied. And I am still not done. Oh, actually, by the looks of it, I might have enough hose to do everything in black. Perfect. So now that everything's installed, about the hoses. So the braided lines, I used the old grinder cutting method where you tape the hose, and you know, you cut it in the middle with a grinder. Cutting it like that gets a bunch of crap, like little rubber, like dust or whatever, it like melts in it, gets stuck in your hose. I blew everything out and sprayed some brake parts cleaner through it to try to, you know, flush everything out, but I still don't trust it. And there's, for a good reason too, I'll show you here in a minute. Anyways, there is a fuel filter right there, obviously. So the one thing I'm was worried about was getting those chunks of debris into my injectors. And I know the injectors have like a little screen on them, but it's going to be kind of a hassle taking it apart and trying to get them cleaned out. So I'd rather avoid that. So what I did was I disconnected the incoming, and I just put a jar there, put that end into a jar, and I just turned my ignition on so my pump would prime, and just basically sent fuel down this line. Granted, I'm sure that fuel filter caught a bunch, but just what came out through here, I'll show you. Look at that. Well, kind of hard to see, but you guys can see all that material on the bottom. And this was just priming it probably 6 times. Kind of a handful of fuel that it shoves out. So I got this section clean, and we were able to fire the car up after that, because I know I'm not going to be getting crap into my injectors. And I set my fuel pressure to 58 psi, and that's what my tuner told me to set it at, so that's what I set it at. I also cut a chunk of hose right there, just for like a little rubber seat for it to sit on. That way it's not vibrating metal on metal. And now that the car is running, next step would be to take that fuel filter out and clean it out. And if you have the filter in the sending unit, take that out as well and just clean it out. I mean, you might as well, unless you're pretty certain you got all the gunk out of your hoses, which in my case I did not. So that would be the next step to do. Anyways, that would be everything. So overall, it's honestly not that hard to do the fuel return here. Couple of things. So I actually don't like this style of hose, the one with the metal on the outside. This black one has metal, but it's kind of, I guess there's either a layer of plastic over it or something. You probably can't see it, but the outside of it is almost like it's fabric. There is metal on the inside, like I said, so when you cut this, you don't have all these little burrs like you do on this one. And you can order a tool, I believe, that helps you put the fittings on, but I did it without that tool, using this hose, and I even was able to do it without the tool with this stuff. It was just a little bit trickier. You had to actually, you know, kind of take your time. But yeah, definitely make sure these are clean best you can before installing them, and then after, it doesn't hurt to run some fuel through it and then go ahead and just clean out your fuel filters. It's going to be a little bit of work, but I mean, that's what we're here doing, work on our cars, right? So that'll be everything. I'll keep you guys updated. Now that we got the fuel pressure regulator installed, we can probably go ahead and set up a dyno, schedule a time I can go get it dyno tuned, and hopefully we can get to, I don't know, 18 pounds of boost. If my either transmission will hold or that fuel pump in the back. So we'll see. But thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe, and let me know what else you guys want to see or want me to do. Laters.